Imagine if Beyonce would have never started making music because she thought the market was oversaturated. Exactly. Welcome back to Read Her Like a Book, a podcast where we read and then we read. Here, I connect what we've always seen in books to what we see in media today to encourage more people to think critically about the media they're consuming. New episodes drop every Thursday. Happy Thursday, y'all. Let's just get right into it. Oversaturation and the myths people tell women. Okay. I feel like in this day and age, 2026, that is the biggest myth I hear is that, oh, you can't enter this industry. Oh, you can't do this. You can't do that. You can't chase this dream because it's oversaturated. Someone's done it already. But that is just talk. And in literature, there's a name for that talk. It's called the chorus. In classical theater, the chorus is the broader general group that opines on the character's actions. It offers societal judgment, and sometimes it can tell the truth, but other times it can mislead the reader. And a really good example of this is in Toni Morrison's Sula. So, Sula is set in the 1920s in a working class black town, and the community is almost the chorus in this situation. So, it follows two young girls as they go from childhood friends, and we see their lives change from little girls to grown women. And the community is often speaking about these two girls. So, there's one girl, Sula, who's growing up in a very unconventional childhood. Her father's not around. Her mother makes some questionable decisions, and the community deems her as the deviant. They call her crazy. They say that she's just kind of like on a really bad path. They also call her some other not so nice names. And there's another girl, Nell. She grows up in a two-parent household. Her mom is very straight and narrow. So they reward her. The community thinks she's just all sweet and kind. So the chorus in this book, the community members, they judge the girls, they interpret their actions, even though we don't know their own thoughts. So, for example, there's a part in the book where something pretty bad happens to Sula's mom, and Sula is standing there, and the community was like, oh my gosh, we saw her smiling. That means we're happy that happened to her mom. And it's like, wait a minute. We don't know what Sula's thinking. We don't know what she's experiencing. The chorus, the community members, you guys are interpreting what you think you see and imposing it on her, and thus imposing it on the reader. And so as a reader, we're like, oh, maybe Sula was happy that something bad happened to her mom. Maybe Sula caused it. We start judging her. We start talking about her. And only when you finish the book, when you realize Sula never opined, we don't know how she feels. Instead of giving her space to experience whatever she's experiencing, or instead of thinking nothing, we impose these thoughts on her because of the community, the chorus, they're yapping, and we just believe everything they say. So fast forward to today, the chorus is no longer the elders sitting on the porch talking about the young kids. It is now the shade room comments. It's the people in there opining on society. It's the tweets, it's the talking heads. And that is the modern day chorus. That is where we see what society thinks about certain topics. And one of the biggest things I've seen in the chorus is the concept of oversaturation. A lot of times we tell women, don't chase your dreams because the market is oversaturated. We don't need your product. We don't need this. There's already a million other things. What makes you special? So today I'm going to break down the myth of oversaturation and all the myths the chorus say with three case studies. Let's start with Beyonce. Okay, so we love Beyonce, we know Beyonce, but back in the day, Beyonce was just a little girl with a dream. She could sing beautifully and she was from Houston. Cool. So in the time that Beyonce was coming up, there were a lot of girl groups. There was TLC, there was In Vogue, there was SVW, there was Escape, and then there was solo acts. There was Aaliyah, Monica, Brandy, and that was just the women. Okay, there was Whitney who was running the game at this point, and then we had Michael, we had Usher, we had Neo. There was so much quote unquote saturation and competition in the market. And in the late 90s, early 2000s, we didn't have technological advances where we can consume music over and over again. It was very limited. You had plays on the radio or you had to get on VH1. So not only was there so much amazing talent, there was also very limited times that the audience could consume your music. So it was just a very difficult industry to grow up in that time and to come up in. But Beyonce did it anyway, okay? And a really good example of this is in Survivor, where she says, thought I wouldn't sell without you, sold 9 million. So Beyonce had people, even though we look at her and we're like, Beyonce is amazing, there was a time where the chorus, the general community was saying, you're not gonna make it, you're not gonna survive, you can't do it, the market's oversaturated. But she overcame that. And one of my favorite clips is now whenever she sings Survivor, the line is, "Thought I wouldn't sell without you, sold 9 million." Every time she sings a song live, she recalibrates with the correct sales. So sometimes it's 9 million, sometimes it's 13 million, sometimes it's 30 million. And I love that because that is a testament to her overcoming the chorus, that all that talk, and just focusing on her goals. Because again, we tell women we can't accomplish, and then when they do accomplish, then we start clapping. So which one is it? And another thing the chorus seems to ignore is that as human beings, we are complex enough that we can appreciate a variety of music. I can have a playlist with Whitney, with Christina Aguilera, with TLC, with In Vogue, and Beyonce, and I can enjoy and appreciate all of them. So the myth with oversaturation that the chorus spews over and over again is that people aren't smart enough and they're not complex enough to enjoy a variety, but that's simply not the case. Another great example is in the makeup industry. I think that's an industry I've seen go from having few players to actually being oversaturated. And a really good example is Danessa Myricks. She's a self made, self taught makeup artist who launched her brand, Danessa Myricks Beauty, in 2015. So, 2015 was a really interesting time for the beauty industry because it was initially run by Gen X. And in this industry and in this time, there were only a few makeup brands that were releasing products. So when I think about my mom, she had one lipstick that she wore every day. She had one powder, and she wouldn't buy new makeup until she had finished those products. But then I saw in the late 2010s, we saw that people started consuming and appreciating and enjoying makeup in more than just one way. So instead of finishing one lipstick all the way through, you had 8 lipsticks. You had a lipstick you wore to work, you had a lipstick you wore to drinks, you had a lipstick you wore to church. And a big part of that is the YouTube era where people were able to actually use it and understand that makeup was a form of expression because back in the day, makeup was just how you looked a little more put together. But we saw makeup transition from something that you kind of saw as like a chore, almost like, okay, I need to do my makeup, I need to wash my dishes, to makeup as something you get to enjoy and you get to experience. So in 2015, we saw a shift in how people viewed makeup, but there were still very few people who ran the prestige market. MAC, L'Oreal, NARS, Makeup Forever, they ran the prestige game, especially with women who had a deeper skin tone. So when Danessa Myricks comes into the game, I'm sure people told her, "You're gonna make a makeup brand? No one's gonna buy it. No one wants your makeup. Everyone already has their go-to look, their go-to brands." But she kept pushing. Do you know Danessa Myricks now is a multi-million dollar brand? It entered Sephora in 2021. And again, when she entered Sephora in 2021, it was still like, well, now you got to compete with all these brands. There's so many options. Why would someone want your little cart? Look at her now. Danessa Myricks on TikTok is probably one of the most popular makeup brands. And when you scroll on TikTok, you see everybody raving about her products. And I really like her products because they're multi use. And I feel like with Danessa Myricks, she entered a market that was really oversaturated, quote unquote, even though that's a myth. The reason her products stand out and the reason that she's been able to be so successful is because she makes really innovative, intelligent products. She makes multi-use products. So for example, she has her Color Fix collection, which is basically liquid products. I'm wearing her blush today, and you can wear it as a blush, you can wear it as a lip gloss, you can wear it as an eyeshadow. So you can use her products so many different ways. And that's the thing people like don't mention when they're talking about, oh, you're entering a market that's oversaturated. Yeah, but I have a good idea. Yes, Danessa essentially entered a market where there was a lot of competition already, but she was bringing something to the market that wasn't there. Nobody was doing multi-use products like her. And on top of that, Danessa Myricks is dark skin, so all of her products were really catered towards women who had a deeper complexion, which wasn't present in the market in 2015. That's why I didn't talk about Rihanna because Fenty Beauty, I think, has gotten its flowers over and over again. But again, Rihanna entered a quote unquote oversaturated market, but when you look at her products, the foundations, that was the big one. Half of those foundations, people hadn't seen the range in the market for a long time. So it's almost insulting to Danessa Myricks, to Rihanna, to tell them, oh, you're entering a market that's oversaturated because they're bringing something new. Danessa had a new idea. Danessa had innovative products. She was catering towards women who hadn't been catered to in the past, and she was also bringing artistry to an industry that we hadn't seen artistry brought to before. Clark it. And finally, for a case study, I want to use me because I feel like I'm eating right now. Okay, so I launched a social media career in 2025. If there's one industry other than makeup that people say is oversaturated, that the chorus says is oversaturated, it's influencing, it's content creation, it's TikTok, Instagram. A lot of people feel like there's already so many creators. It's just there's no room for any more. Okay. And then another whammy is that I have a book talk. Another thing the chorus says is that people don't read anymore. So it's like, dang, double homicide. I'm getting it from both sides. But let me tell you something. Every day I open up my TikTok, I have 10 to 15 new followers every day. I have 1,400 followers, and that's only not even a year into my content creation game. So there is a market. Every time I open up my TikTok and I see new followers, there is a market for people wanting book content. And I took a little page from Beyonce's book about being persistent and ignoring the haters. And then I also took a page from Danessa Myricks, creating something that people haven't seen before. I've niched myself in a way that's literary fiction. A lot of people on Book Talk, they focus a lot on romance and fantasy. But what I noticed was that there wasn't a lot of emphasis on literary fiction. That's primarily what I read. I consider literary fiction to be books that reflect the world around us in media that looks like shows like Insecure or Girlfriends. And so I've marketed myself in a way similar to Danessa, where yes, I'm entering a market where there's just a lot of people there, but I'm doing something that people aren't really doing. And that's just proof that in an oversaturated space, there's always going to be room for a unique voice. I have one closing PSA for today's episode. The chorus is always going to talk, so let them talk, because there's always room for one more. That's all for episode 4 of Read Her Like a Book. Next week, I'll be talking about another woman the media misunderstood. Until then, I'll see you on the next page. Bye.